Chapter 13, Temptations. After seeing off their friends and getting their affairs in order, Tanin and the young apprentice of the late priest Ismail embark on their own journey to the mega-city of Levant, hoping to meet with the heroic magician Refugio, who helped them so greatly against the Sakari invaders, and have the man teach Simeon some of his vast knowledge. It takes the men 2 days to travel southwest past the city of Ramash and begin the arduous trek along the Jabal mountain range another 8 days. Eventually, tired and hungry, the men find themselves before the massive gates of the city of Levant, heart of their contemporary civilization and sprawling urban center. Levant is the largest and most populous city of the known world, rivaled only in scale by the bustling port of Dwarka. "Ho!" the guard shouts from atop the nearly 100-foot stone walls encircling the city. "What brings you to Levant? I do not see goods for trading. Be you refugees? Do not afford space to freeloaders. But if you are willing to work, the city of Levant will have you gladly. I am merely chaperone. My young companion comes before you as an apprentice priest and practitioner of the arcane. Alas, my young friend's master was recently slain, and his training left incomplete. We seek the audience of the man called Refugio," Tanin says. The guards begin discussing something among themselves. "Stand by while we send your request to the palace." "The palace?" Simeon whispers. "What is going on?" "Refugio is the personal wizard for the king of Levant. Most likely his use need be approved by the king himself," Tanin explains. Nearly an hour passes before another guard returns to address them. "King Dagon will see you. Await your escort." The gate rises to the sound of loud gears working. A dozen armed soldiers jog out to meet the men of Kataltakuk and escort them to the royal palace of Levant. "Do you think this is also standard?" Simeon asks. Tanin is quiet, trying to discern what exactly is transpiring. The duo is brought before King Dagon III of Levant. "Welcome, friends," the elderly man says, his back to the visitors. Something troubling is in the king's voice, which concerns Tanin. "My guards tell me that you seek the guidance of my senior court mage." "Yes, your majesty. Due to your goodwill and compassion, Refugio and your soldiers came to our aid in our greatest time of need. We saw the power of your magician firsthand, and were marveled by his skill." King Dagon strokes his long beard in thought. "So you are from Kataltakuk. I had heard that your village was saved, but it is in rough shape." Tanin nods, though the king cannot see. "Yes, your grace. Many of our people were slain, and most of our buildings destroyed. It shall take us a lifetime to rebuild. Levant does not hand out charity, and I doubt you have any goods with which to barter. Your man Refugio informed us of these things, your majesty. That is not why we come before you," Tanin says. "My master, Ismail, was killed by the demons," Simeon speaks up. "My training was not yet completed, and I had hoped that you would allow Refugio to teach me so that I may use my gifts for the benefit of my people." "A noble cause," King Dagon says, turning around to face them. "But I am afraid your trip was in vain. The man you seek as a teacher turned out to be as trustworthy as a viper. Refugio took the Sakari female and at least a dozen of my men, and fled in the night. Should he be found, he will be executed." Both Tanin and Simeon are stunned. "He betrayed you, your grace?" Tanin whispers. "He did," King Dagon replies, balling his fists in anger. "I was far too trusting. I never foresaw this treason. I apologize. I do feel for the plight of your people. but I have no great wizard remaining to take you on as a pupil. Even now the magicians I do have struggle to understand the thousands of pages of notes and books that Refugio was unable to take with him in his haste. May I be permitted to speak with them and have a look at Refugio's books myself? Simeon asks. King Dagon turns his back to them again, his spirit defeated by the betrayal. Do what you will. I shall not hinder your mind's thirst for greater knowledge. Levant is a civilized city. We value the pursuit of enlightenment and the advancement of all understanding. I shall not allow the actions of one man to taint our city's legacy. Thanking the king, the two leave the palace. Two guards escort them to the former study of Refugio. A thin man in his late 20s looks up from a stack of papers, adjusting his glasses. You look a little too young to be one of the specialists we sent for. He glances at Tannen and frowns. And you look a little too plain. My name is Simeon. I'm an apprentice from Kataltakuk, of the late master Ismail. Ismail, the man repeats thoughtfully. I believe I have heard that name before. I'm sorry for your loss. The passing of a wise master is always a sad day. I am God. I specialize in the study of botanical arts. Simeon's eyes light up. It is fate that we have met, Gad. I have a great many questions for you, if you do not mind. The journey proceeds smoothly, and the group from Kataltakuk approaches the port city faster than what is expected, reaching the outskirts of the port in only 18 days since departure. Enkidu urges them to halt before becoming visible to the sentries, manning the outer walls. The entire city is surrounded by a portion of the sea and connected to the mainland, with wooden and stone bridges. The front of Dwarka is blocked by a massive drawbridge, held aloft by iron chains. Numerous armed guards patrol the bridges and the wall, ever alert for pirate activity. Tarvin and I shall proceed into the city and conduct our business without knowing of your movements. Ride in at dusk, just before the gate closes for the night, and arouse as little suspicion as possible. We will meet back up at the fountain tomorrow night and share all that we have learned, Enkidu says. Leonlim nods. And if we run into trouble, we do not risk the success of the other. Do not step into our aid and make it known that we are companions. We stand a greater chance of success acting independently of each other for as long as possible. Following Enkidu's instructions, Leonlim stays behind, as the other two ride on towards the city of Dwarka. At dusk, she will slip into the city and locate the food stores. With their location in mind, she will also note the strength and numbers of the city guards, tasked with protecting the locations. If diplomacy fails, Kataltakuk will do whatever it takes to survive. Enkidu and Tarvin make their way towards the city's entrance, and are greeted by a group of armed Dwarka soldiers. The men block the entrance, which is on a bridge, as the majority of the city is surrounded by water, being a large seaport. Strongly built, with sharp features, and skin darker than anyone Tarvin has ever seen, the guards posted at the city gates are intimidating. Enkidu, however, seems to pay them no mind. Welcome to Dwarka, Barida, one of the guards says, greeting the foreigners as friends. Are you here for a trade or pleasure? We have come to speak with the city lenders on behalf of Kataltakuk, Enkidu announces. He stands face to face with the imposing guard, not backing down at all. The guard nods. Make sure that you enjoy all Dwarka has to offer while you are here, Barida. The smells. The strong smells are the first thing that Tarvin notices. Being a port city, the majority of commerce is through the fish markets. Despite being on the complete other side of Dwarka, near the docks, the smell of stinking fish is overwhelming. All native Dwarkans bathe in perfumes, and wear strong fragrances to drown out the near-constant stench. Because of this, sellers of perfumes can earn a fine living within the city. Tarvan's eyes water, and he pinches his nostrils shut. My God, how can anyone live with this foul odor? Enkidu laughs, removing a small seashell from his pouch. Here, apply this to your upper lip. He opens the shell and dabs a reddish paste on his fingers, and smears it across his upper lip and nostrils. The herbs of the lavandel have a sharper smell that will block the stink with its own aroma. Tarvan quickly applies the remedy. That was not what I expected as my first impression of the city. A buxom woman with the reddened face of intoxication stumbles between the men. Oh my! Such solid young studs! Begone, sot! Enkidu growls, waving his hand dismissively. We do not have the time for your nonsense. A rude one he is, the woman says, offended. Tarvan nods. My companion was not blessed with manners. Forgive us his ill demeanor. The woman walks away, slightly sobered by the exchange. Can you not make enemies of everyone that we encounter? Pushing past drunken citizens of all ages and sizes, fornicating openly in the streets, the men of Katatakuk navigate the western entrance of Dwarka and walk towards the city proper. People from all over the world come to Dwarka to trade and indulge in the city's pleasures. Seafaring men lecherously take full advantage of the many prostitutes working the docks. Barrels of wine lay about, and a general feeling of depravity causes Enkidu to grimace. For the good of their city, he presses on. With no shame found whatsoever in Dwarka, men and women take whomever they want and wherever they want. Partners are frequently passed around, like equally widespread wine and beer. Even adolescents partake in these debauched festivities, making Enkidu's stomach roll in knots. Instinctively, his hand slides to the handle of Tiavan, as he sees a large Dwarka man taking 2 girls no under than 12 with him into an alley. Tarvan places a hand against his companion's chest and slowly shakes his head. We are not here to judge their morality. We need supplies, and only Dwarka is prosperous enough to risk giving us a loan to finish rebuilding our city. If we start a scene, not only will we damn our mission to failure, we may guarantee the starvation of all of Katatakuk. Enkidu nods, his anger still not abated. While you are right, this debauchery is too much for me. I feel like I am full of sin even walking the same stones as the Dwarka, unable to allow such unspeakable evils to go on. Enkidu follows the man into the alley, and quickly attacks from behind so as not to be seen. With a violent twist, the man's neck is broken, and his body laying behind one of the many piles of trash common around the city. Run, and speak of this never, Enkidu says. The girls scatter in fear, and Enkidu prays that they do not seek out the authorities. About to lecture Enkidu about jeopardizing their mission, Tarvan pauses, enraptured by the heaving bosom of a beautiful topless young woman with raven hair and emerald eyes. Enkidu nudges him in the side with his elbow. You can sightsee later. We must find the master of coin of the city. Tarvan nods, but struggles to look away, causing the young woman to giggle and wave at him. I've never seen such beauty as is plentiful in this city, Tarvan says, looking around with wide eyes as they continue on. Do not fall into the temptations of Dwarka. There is no morality or decency in this city. Looking at beautiful women never hurt anyone. Do not be so prudish. Enkidu frowns, disappointed in his young companion. Looking leads to desire, and desire for these women will lead you into the swamps of their depravity. You will be persuaded to worship their gods and be damned. Oh, come now. You do not mean to tell me that you have never known a good roll in the grass with a spirited young daughter of the city? I have known women and loved, yet my desires have also led me to make ill decisions that were unwise. The women of Dwarka are not to be taken as wives, for they will never let go of their old ways. Tarvin laughs. I am not in the market for a wife, friend. I seek physical companionship for its value alone. Falling in with Dwarka, you will stray from your beliefs and convictions, adopting their gods and ways. If their gods are indeed better, they deserve my reverence. Enkidu grinds his teeth together, filled with anger. He swallows his fury down, fearful of what his rage might lead him to do. The man's eyes catch sight of a blacksmith, folding the red-hot iron of a newborn blade ahead, and his mood perks. Good evening, sir, Enkidu says in greeting. What are you doing? Tarvin asks. Did you not just ask me to not make enemies of everyone? I'm attempting to converse with this talented tradesman. The smith looks up, his interest focused entirely upon the glimmering diamond of Tiavon within his sheath. What a magnificent weapon! I have never seen such a shine before. Is it enchanted? Enkidu nods, drawing his sword. The light of the smith's fire catches the Yazatan markings and causes them to glow. It is a relic of the Yazata. Shh! Do not go just announcing such things, Tarvin says, trying not to raise his voice. Do you believe there to be many in this world with such a blade as yours? It is highly unlikely. My sword is unique, Enkidu replies, puzzled. Then any who would call you enemy would know of your blade. If word spreads of a man wielding the diamond sword of a Yazata, our entire mission is doomed for failure. I see, Enkidu says, ashamed. I did not think of that. I apologize for my reckless behavior. Despite being a masterful swordsman and warrior priest, Enkidu's scholarly intelligence is only average, and he is prone to act impulsively and without thinking decisions or their consequences through beforehand. Maybe we should have brought some items to trade, Tarvin says, exploring the hundreds of vendors lining the streets. Many sell exotic fruits and nuts that he has never before seen. There are even stalls selling meats and skins of all kinds of animals, ranging from the common like squirrel and rabbit, to the rare and fantastic such as dragon and kieran. Look, he shouts, holding up a large clawed finger. I did not know dragons were real. They are not, Enkidu grumbles, taking the claw from his companion and returning it. Many of these merchants are less than scrupulous. They prey upon the naivety of foreign travelers. It looks like it could have come from a dragon, Tarvin mutters, disappointed. But I am serious. We might have had better luck trading than trying to secure a loan. A city like this seems more keen to barter than to hand anything out for free. It would not be for free, Enkidu explains. Money lenders make their profit of what is called interest. In the end, you will end up paying far more than what you initially borrowed. Tarvin eyes him with confusion. That does not make sense. Why would anyone choose to do that? Sometimes borrowing funds from one with a surplus is the only way. We are not in much better of a position. What do we have to trade? We need all the food we grow right now. We cannot afford to trade any of it. I bet the rest of that sacred water, or the blessed seeds, would have had a high price here. I've not seen many magical items around. I would never taint the sacredness of items blessed by the divine by selling them at a market. This is why my father sent me along, Enkidu, Tarvin says, scolding his elder. I have more business sense and flexibility. You are too rigid in your beliefs and do not understand and compromise. Yes, I do, Enkidu argues, annoyed. I compromised when I allowed the people of Tug to join us. I could have left them all to rot in that city. I still think any magical goods would be in high demand. There is plenty of magic for sale in Dwarka, Enkidu says. What you see here is just the surface. We're in the main public square. This is where all new visitors to Dwarka pass through. Only those who have been here before know where to continue, to locate rare and more exclusive items. Show me, Tarvin says excitedly. We do not have the time to explore, Enkidu groans. We must find that master of coin. Come on, just a small detour, Tarvin begs. I likely will never come this way again. With a sigh, Enkidu leads Tarvin down one of the streets to the northeast. In this section of Dwarka can be found many shops selling potions and herbal mixtures. Enkidu points to one of the shops. That is an apothecary. They specialize in magical brews created through mixing different ingredients together. No incantations are needed. Like the plant that you had Yarlagab use to rid my blood of that insect poison? Enkidu nods. Exactly. It is more of an herbal science than magic, honestly. So, it is not like the magic that the priestesses cast, or like what Masters Fausto and Ismail could perform. No, it is very different. With enough training, anyone can make an herbal mixture. But some people can train their entire lives to learn magic and never master it. That may be true, an old man interrupts from a doorway. But there are ways around human limitations. What? Tarvin asks, surprised. Come on, Enkidu says, trying to usher his companion along. He is just trying to sell his goods. Hold on, Tarvin says. I want to hear what he has to say. The old man grins. What a smart young man you are. Much wiser and intuitive than your companion. Enkidu growls in annoyance. Watch your tongue. I am not in a good mood. Enkidu, do not go threatening people, Tarvin says. You are supposed to be earning goodwill here. Enkidu? The old man says, his pitch rising. For a second, Tarvin swears that he hears hints of a female voice. I know you. You're a descendant of the Holy Ones. You wield Yazatan weaponry. Enkidu's hand slides to Tiavan. How do you know that? The old man cackles with laughter. I know many things. I know that your city is in need. I know that you are struggling to swallow your pride and ask for help from people you despise. Tarvin is astonished by the old man's insight. Are you a prophet? Some might say so, the old man laughs. I am not gifted, I must admit. My abilities all stem from the potions I create. You too can see all and know all. Enkidu, Tarvin whispers, we cannot pass this up. Oh, you are good, Enkidu says. I truly do not know how you are doing this, but I am confident that this is some kind of trickery. If one had such powers, they would not spend their days toiling in a potion shop in Dwarka. If you doubt the results, come see for yourself. I would be glad to prove you wrong. I would like to have those kind of powers, Tarvin says. Please, let me have the opportunity to give back to our city by having powers of my own. Being able to see the future, I can change our misfortune. Tarvin, the limited funding we have must be used to try and secure materials that will help us rebuild. We cannot be indulging in fortune-tellers and potions. Enkidu is scared of your potential, the old man says. Afraid that you will no longer need him if you become powerful on your own. Enkidu eyes the old man with increased suspicion. What is your game? Are you trying to create a rift between us? The old man laughs. I am just having fun. His appearance changes as his voice becomes more rounded and feminine. I cannot believe you have not guessed my identity. You really have lost your edge. The old you would have caught on right away. Enkidu moves his hand away from his sword and sighs. Damn you, Eris. What are you doing back in Dwarka? This city has become so ripe with discord that I just could not stay away. It was as if Dwarka was calling out to me. You know this person? Tarvin asks in confusion. A few times, actually, Eris says slyly. Enkidu ignores her puns. She is not a person. This is Eris, a trickster goddess. Eris completely reverts to the form of a voluptuous, blonde-haired woman with bright red lips. She pouts, glaring at Enkidu. Goddess of strife. Calling me a trickster makes me sound so petty. You are petty. Enkidu, Tarvin says. Please explain. I thought you abhorred other gods. You seem friendly with this one. Eris winks at Tarvin. You have no idea. Eris has a bad habit of showing up to cause me grief, Enkidu says with a sigh. Don't flatter yourself, hun. I live to sow chaos for all humanity, not just you. She introduced me to Taraxime, if that tells you anything. Eris laughs. Oh, that was a good one. You didn't have any idea she was with your kinsman. Tarvin becomes angry. Your prank cost hundreds of lives. Our city is in turmoil because of you. Lanlim's father died because of you. Because of me? I merely introduced the two of them. You humans make your own decisions. I did not make anyone do a single thing. She hides behind this loophole, Enkidu groans. It is the only reason I did not take her head. So harsh, Eris says, feigning insult. You make me sound like such a monster. That is exactly what you are, Tarvin shouts. Enkidu should have remembered rule number 1 in this world, Eris says, holding up her index finger. Do not dump a goddess. Tarvin looks at Enkidu with betrayal. You and her? You dated a monster? I did not know what she was at the time, Enkidu says, defending himself. I thought it odd that I could not sense her energy, but despite my caution, I enjoyed her company. Eris shrugs. I have that way with humans. I cannot believe you, Tarvin says. You are such a hypocrite. He walks off angrily. I take it that you no longer want to try one of these potions, Eris says. What would it have done? Turn him into something? Enkidu sighs. Eris chuckles to herself, finding her pranks the funniest things in the world. A rat! It would have turned him into a rat! Enkidu shakes his head. You never change. But you certainly have, she says, no longer laughing. You have become so serious. Life has weighed heavy burdens upon you, Enkidu. Enough of the games, Eris. What has really brought you back to Dwarka? When last we spoke, you said you were headed for the east. Did you know that I would be coming? It isn't always about you. It is the religious and political turmoil that caught my attention. I bet you came here without even knowing that the king is dead, and that the priests of Nylothotep now rule this city in his stead. You cannot be serious. When have you known me to lie when the truth would cause much more anguish? Enkidu feels sick to his stomach. I knew coming here was a bad idea. Eris grins. Taraxime's family still has it out for you. They blame you not only for her death, but those of her father and brothers as well. Enkidu's eyes widen in surprise. I did not know that they were dead. When did this happen? They were killed by the same group of Sakari that attacked your city and killed Taraxime. So tragic. I bet you're so upset, Enkidu growls. You introduced us knowing the pain it would lead to. Do not make me regret my decision not to kill you. Eris smiles. You have a soft spot for me, and we both know it. You cannot kill me then, and you still cannot. Once again, her expression becomes more serious. Do not stay in Dwarka for long. There are far worse things than me or the Eridae clan here. The priests of Nyarlathotep have made enemies of the rest of the world in their push to become Dwarka's singular religion. Soon, dozens of ships from both Ethion and the Jiangshang Empire will choke this city with a trade blockade. Once we have secured what we need to save Katatakuk, my companions and I will leave. Do hurry. You will not want to be trapped here once things get really bad. Even I will be leaving soon. Enkidu nods, leaving to catch up with Tarvin. He hopes he'll be able to smooth things over with the youth. Enkidu, be careful of the serpent and its followers. He is not as dead as we were all led to believe. What? My father killed Nyarlathotep. They both died in that battle. Fausto and Master Hoyles told me so. Dormant, not dead. The serpent has been biding its time and replenishing its strength. As its followers increase, so too does its strength. With all of Dwarka officially one faith, the serpent will only become that much more powerful. Enkidu smiles before turning to leave once more. Now who has the soft spot for who? Thank you. Eris laughs, shaking her head. Stupid man. Dwarka, 24 years before the Sakari invasion of Katatakuk. Concealed in beggar's robes, Sam Hyalura and his companion, the apprentice priest, Alakim, stand in an alley overlooking the Templar of Enagashap. The temple is abuzz with activity, people coming and going frequently. Priests and worshippers alike visit the temple to offer prayers and fellowship with others faithful to the serpent. Look there, Alakim says, pointing to a contingent of nearly 20 armed soldiers marching out of the temple. Those are soldiers of the royal guard. What are they doing at the temple? On duty and in full armor at that, Sam observes. That is troubling indeed. If the priesthood has converted a significant portion of the royal army, control of Dwarka will shift to the serpent. Sam nods. It will not end with the fall of Dwarka. The priests of Nyarlathotep have infiltrated Naya, Muria, Urar, and even Tug. With control of the docks, it will spread across the seas and infect the entire world. Alakim shudders at the thought. So many lives will be lost if that happens. The serpent does not allow for peaceful conversion. Anyone who resists will be killed. To stop that from happening, we must cull the serpent's influence here in Dwarka. Alakim's eyes widen in surprise. I thought we were sent here only to observe and report our findings back to Fausto and Ismail. None of us knew the situation in Dwarka would be this dire. We cannot waste the precious time Dwarka has left with returning to Katatakuk, only to deliberate on action, and return again to carry out that decision. This city does not have another 2 or 3 months to spare. Honestly, it may already be too late to turn the tide here. Dwarka may already be far too gone to save. If that is true, then even Katatakuk will fall prey to the serpent's reach. Our friends and families, they will be forced to convert or die. Sam grips the handle of Tiavan tightly. I will not allow that to happen. My son will grow up in a world free of that kind of religious tyranny. Even if it costs us our lives, we must stave off the spreading of this foul religion. After the royal guards depart, a younger priest sneaks away from the temple to meet up with the men of Katatakuk in secret. I'm sure that you noticed our high-profile guest tonight, the priest says. He keeps the hood of his cloak up to conceal his identity from any passers-by. The king is not aware that they are mobilizing or attending services here at the temple. The priesthood is in full control of the military behind the king's back. The 3 of us cannot stand against that many professional soldiers, Alakim says. 3 of us? The priest asks, frightened. You mean the two of you? I have already stuck my neck out enough to provide you with information these past few months. If any of the Serpent's men found out about my treachery, the edge of a blade would be a mercy to what they have in store for me. Psalm nods. I understand. I cannot expect you to do any more than you already have. You assist us greatly, and you have our eternal gratitude. The priest seems ashamed of his cowardice, but cannot force himself to change his mind to become more brave. I support you, I truly do. I know your cause is noble, but I just cannot bring myself to face any more risk than I already have. I'm sorry. Do not be troubled by it, Psalm smiles. We shall manage. God is on our side. As I pray is always the case, the priest says. You are good men. The hopes of all who crave freedom from oppression rest upon your shoulders. What is our next move? Alakam asks. The royal guards will not risk returning to the temple again today. Doing so would only bring suspicion from the king, and any still loyal to him, the priest says. The king is not in league with them? Alakam asks. No. The serpents of Nyarlathotep have not dared move against the king openly. While they do have many under their allure, the majority of the royal guard are still loyal to his majesty, the priest says. But that will not last long. I fear the king's life will soon be in danger. Would the priesthood really attempt assassination? Alakam asks. Advancement of the faith is far more important to those zealots than their own lives. Each and every member of the priesthood would embrace martyrdom if it meant the furthering of their cause. That is the most dangerous kind of enemy, Psalm says. We must not underestimate their dedication to the serpent. I wish you the best of luck, but this is where we must part ways, the priest says. My absence will be noticed if I tarry any longer. We will not be able to meet again like this. I will look towards your success. The priest departs, returning to the temple to conduct his priestly duties. Any deviation from these activities would draw unwanted suspicion. If the priest is found out to be a traitor, not only will his life be at risk, but so too will be those of Psalm and Alakam. So what is our next move? Alakam asks. Do we dare move against the priesthood with just the two of us? Eliminating the threat against the king must be our top priority. If the king is assassinated, then the serpent will take control. We will not be able to get close enough to the king to protect him. The royal guards will arrest us if we even take a step towards the king. Psalm thinks on this for a moment. Taking out the priesthood would be a safer approach than going to the king and trying to protect him directly. If we are able to cripple the servants of Nyarlathotep, the threat to the king should greatly diminish. If we follow the corrupted guards the next time they leave the temple, we may be able to ambush them before they can blend back in with their greater forces. The two men continued to stake out the temple complex regularly, watching for the next time the temple guards arrive to pay tribute to their black god. Instead of coming on their off time in fewer numbers, once again, the soldiers arrive as a unit and in full armor. After the guards leave the temple, Psalm and Alakam follow them to one of Dwarka's shadier brothels. Psalm, Alakam whispers uncomfortably. I do not think I can bring myself to enter that den of sin. It pains my conscience as well. But for the greater good it must be done. Removing the threat these men pose will ensure that the royal army remains committed to protecting their king. To save Dwarka and stop the serpent's spread, we must cull the spoilage at the vine. Entering the brothel, the men ignore the advances of the prostitutes and do their best to get a visual layout of the building. Each of the soldiers has taken a private room to enjoy one of the brothel's many employees. As the madam of the establishment is also a follower of the serpent, the guard are not charged for their indulgences. Loyalty to Nyarlathotep over loyalty to the king is greatly rewarded. Alakam positions himself as close to the center of the main hall as possible, trying to keep all of the occupied rooms within his line of sight. Visualizing the element of fire in his mind, the apprentice priest locks into each door and brings the index and middle fingers of his right hand to his lips. "What are you doing?" the madame asks angrily, summoned by several of her girls to report the men's strange behavior and refusing their advances. "If you are not here to partake in what this establishment has to offer, then you must leave at once." Psalm quickly brings Tiavan to bear against the woman's throat. "If you value your life, I would recommend staying silent." "Guards!" the woman screams. "Help!" Psalm does not hesitate to follow through with this threat, separating the madame's head from her neck. The screams of the prostitutes ring out in a frantic chorus of terror and panic. Several of the guards are already moving towards the doors in various states of undress. Acting quickly, Alakam ignites his spell. Hariak Kathira! Balls of fire appear outside of each of the doors. Zarat! Trumfalgir! The fireballs launch forwards through the doors and blast that encircle Alakam like a burning flower. The occupants of each room are instantly reduced to ash, leaving no one alive within. In the chaos, several prostitutes attempt to run past Psalm, but he cuts each of them down mercilessly with his sword. Alakam gives him a look of surprise. "There can be no witnesses. If we are identified before we can bring down the priesthood, all of our efforts will be for nothing." Psalm continues to move through the brothel, using Tiavan to slaughter every man and woman inside. The flames spread throughout the building, engulfing it completely. Psalm and Alakam narrowly escape the fire, making their way back to the temple complex. "I do not know if I can continue," Alakam says, stopping to catch his breath. "I've never killed anyone before." "We cannot stop now," Psalm says. "Not after we have struck the first blow. Surprise is still in our favor, but it shall diminish the longer we wait." Climbing the steps of the temple, both men take a deep breath to calm their nerves and steel their courage. Entering the temple, Alakam turns back to face the doorway and immediately begins to chant. "Murlak! Bab!" Alakam casts, creating a wall of energy that blocks all entrance and escape from the temple. As the priests and followers of Nyarlathotep react with confusion, Psalm lowers the hood of his cloak and draws Tiavan. "Here ends your plot to murder King Jogelakar and spread the disease of your foul religion beyond the limits of Dwarka," Psalm declares. "You cannot stand in opposition to the great serpent and expect to live," the head priest, a man named Zaim Alafayet, shouts. "Nyarlathotep will feast on your bones, and your blood sacrifices will make him grow even stronger." Alakam brings his fingers up to his lips. "Zarat, Tramfalgir." "Hajiz Kwainam!" Zaim screams in alarm, desperately commanding his priests to erect magical barriers and protection. Most of the occupants of the temple are unable to react quickly enough, and the intense flames of Alakam's spell spread outwards to consume them. Psalm launches himself forward, thrusting Tiavan through one of the barrier spells to stab the priest in the gut. The priest looks down in disbelief as his spell cracks and disperses. Psalm rips the blade free at an angle and pivots to bring it back down into the neck of another. "Aginestra!" several priests shout out, attempting to mount their own offense. "Hajiz Kwainam!" Alakam says, erecting his own magical barriers to block the fireballs from connecting. Psalm darts past his companion's protection to strike one of the priests in the face and send him flying across the room before turning to split a second one down the center. "No," Zaim mutters. He watches in horror as all around him his comrades fall one by one. "Not when we were so close to achieving everything. It was all in place. How could this be?" "You overestimated your god," the spy for Kataltakuk says from behind. My God, Zaim says in confusion, turning around. As he turns, the other priest plunges a knife into his belly. Yes, your God, the priest says, for I would never worship a disgusting worm as my God. Zaim shakily reaches up, pulling at the man's hood to reveal he is none other than Sabonjal. The head priest collapses to his back, staring up at the ceiling as blood swells out all around him. His hearing becomes muffled as the dying screams of the other followers of Nyarlathotep sound all around him. Blessed Nyarlathotep, Zaim whispers, using his finger to weakly draw several symbols in his own blood. Please accept the blood of your devout to manifest in this world and avenge this grand slight against you. Blood of the slain priests begins to glow brightly as it is used in the dark magic ritual. Red eyes appear in the darkness within the deepest, blackest pits beneath the temple complex. It is coming, Sabonjal whispers, sensing the sudden spike of evil from below. His skin pales with instinctual fright. Thousands of years of humanity's evolution has caused his body to be frightened of this emerging threat at a cellular level. We have failed. Not yet, Psalm shouts, remaining defiant. Killing the serpent here and now will end this nightmare once and for all. No longer will we ever have to fear the spread of its evil. Nyarlathotep's death will mark the final demise of their black faith. The building quakes violently as the dark spirit solidifies its mass beneath them. Go! Psalm screams at Sabonjal. This is not your tomb. One of us must survive to ensure this never happens again. If we fail, you must tell Fausto and Ismail all that happened. Sabonjal nods, running for the exit. A massive black tail explodes from the floor, bringing down the exit and collapsing it into the top of the temple steps. Sabonjal rolls out of the way of the debris and looks up to see enormous black coils rising up all around the temple complex. It is far larger than I could have ever imagined, Sabonjal whispers. No man can stand up to this monstrosity. Back to the depths of hell with you, foul worm! Psalm screams, leaping at the nearest coil and slashing downward. A deafening howl bellows out below them as black fluid sprays in all directions from the wound. How can you still fight, knowing we are no match for this thing? Sabonjal whispers. Alcam brings his fingers up to his lips. Zarat, Tranfalgir. The apprentice priest engulfs another black coil in mystical flames. The head of Nyarlathotep explodes from the floor, capturing Alcam in its enormous jaws. Alcam erects a barrier of protected energy around him, but each of the serpent's fangs are longer than the height of a man, and the force of its jaws begin to compress even the magical barrier. Psalm rushes forward to defend, slashing furiously with his sword against any exposed flesh. The serpent's tail whips across from out of nowhere, catching Psalm solidly and propelling him through a large stone support pillar. Psalm lies motionless beneath the rocks, his back surely broken. Alcam attempts to cast another spell to expand his protection, but the serpent presses its fangs together to crush the priest. Nyarlathotep's jaw snaps shut, blood drooling from the corners of its mouth. The creature's red eyes lock on to the only human still on its feet. Sabonjal trembles in terror, unable to get his body to move. He cannot run or fight. He is frozen with paralysis. The serpent opens its jaws once more with a hiss, the remains of Alcam spilling out on the floor in a horrid mess. Before Nyarlathotep can attack, a beam of white light strikes it in the face from the side. The creature turns in anger to see that somehow Psalm is back on his feet. A faint white aura surrounds the man, causing his hair to lift slightly as if blown upwards by a weak breeze. Servant of sin, Psalm growls. You feed on misery and despair.
You have no right to call yourself a god. Nyarlathotep strikes, thrusting its head towards the man and snapping him with its powerful jaws. Som's blade cuts through the sides of the serpent's mouth, leaving it unable to close its jaws. The bottom of the serpent's mouth hangs open, dripping blood to the floor. Som is unable to deal any more damage. Nyarlathotep's two most prominent fangs buried deeply into his chest. Having dealt each other grievous wounds, they are locked together in a stalemate. Nyarlathotep tries to pull itself free, but its jaw muscles are cut, and it is unable. Shakily, Som lifts his sword and drives it down through the serpent's snout. Nyarlathotep howls in agony, finally shaking free of the man. The serpent thrashes about, slamming itself against the walls and bringing the rest of the temple down upon it. Sabonjal gathers up Som and drags him out of the temple as it collapses. "It is over," he breathes with relief. "You killed that beast." Som does not reply, having already died of his injuries. Kataltakuk, 23 years ago. Sabonjal climbs down from his horse and removes a wrapped bundle from its pack. The city guards allow the man to enter, taking his horse to shelter in the stables during his stay. "You saw him pass?" Fausto asks sadly. He always feared this day would come. No teacher ever wishes to outlive their students. "The wounds inflicted by the serpent were just too severe. I had no time to get him any help." "But he succeeded," Ismail asks. "He took the serpent down with him." Sabonjal nods. "He did, but at the most terrible cost." "And Alakam?" Fausto asks. "Did he also perish in the battle?" "Both of your students fought bravely to the end. Because of their sacrifice, Dwarka has been saved from Nyarlathotep's tyranny." "The serpent would not have stopped with Dwarka," Ismail says. "Killing that beast saved the entire world from its evil. The priesthood may yet still try to rebuild the temple and fool the masses into believing that the serpent is still alive," Sabonjal says. "I shall maintain my cover as their priest and ensure that they never again are able to come this close to victory. I will do what I must to sabotage their success at every turn." He hands Fausto a wrapped bundle. "This is all that I was able to save of Som's belongings. I'm sure that he would want his son to have it." Fausto partially unwraps the bundle to see the shining glare of Tiavon's blade. "When he is of age, I shall make sure that Enkidu is given this birthright." "He will have big shoes to fill," Sabonjal says. "Som was a powerful warrior and a dedicated man of faith. There's not like to be anyone like him again for a long time." "Enkidu will have his own strength," Fausto says, "and he will forge his own path separate from his father's. Each man has his own destiny and cannot copy those of his ancestors. I look forward to meeting this Enkidu one day when he is grown. The world will need strong men like him to protect it from evil." Dwarka, Enkidu's era. Having caught up with Tarvan, Enkidu has tried hard to smooth things over with the young man. His efforts have been mostly unsuccessful. Tarvan remains angry at him. The young man feels betrayed by Enkidu for keeping his relationship with Eris a secret all this time. He believed Enkidu to be a man of staunch faith and convictions, but now he sees he is as easily led astray by his hormones as anyone else. All the times he warned Tarvan to resist the temptations of Dwarka, and here he was, someone who had already fallen for them multiple times in the past himself. "We should keep a low profile before gaining audience with the city's master of coin. The less chance someone recognizes you, the better," Tarvan mutters. "You do not have any other ex-girlfriends in the city we need to worry about, do we?" Enkidu shakes his head. "No, of that I am certain. No one else here is going to recognize me other than the relatives of Taraxime. As long as we steer clear of them, we should be fine. Enkidu Hyalura, a gruff voice shouts from behind. Tarvin's breath catches in his throat and his body freezes in despair. The men of Kitaltakuk slowly turn to meet the approach of the largest man that Tarvin has ever seen. The man's chest is massive, easily wider than Tarvin's entire body shoulder to shoulder. Each of the man's hands are large enough to palm an adult's skull and crush it with ease. "What are you doing back here?" the man growls. "I warned you never to come back to this city." Tarvin glares at Enkidu. "No one else, huh?" Enkidu is not troubled by the man's arrival. Instead, the brave warrior begins to smile. "Namath Ungart." "You know this man?" Tarvin asks, still fearful. Namath draws a large hooked blade from his back. "Of course he does. He's the one who made me this pretty." He points to a scar running from his right eye, down across his nose and opposite cheek. The two large men are inches from each other, and the tension is thick in the air. "It's not my fault that you never learned how to properly evade." After another few tense moments, both men begin laughing loudly before tightly grasping each other's forearms in greetings. "What are you doing back in this shithole, Enkidu? You've never had anything but ill experiences here." "It is not by choice," Enkidu admits. "My home village is in peril, and we have come here as a last resort to seek aid." "What kind of aid? Do you need warriors?" Namath asks. Enkidu shakes his head. "The war is already over. We have suffered extensive damage. We have come to speak with the city purser and petition a loan for supplies to rebuild." "That would be Vazang Rendalim. He's likely to be found within the temple of Anagashap," Namath says, pointing to a large pyramid in the city's center. Many temples line the central square, representing over a dozen different gods and faiths. "He is a follower of the foul worm Nyarlathotep," Enkidu growls. "While there are many faiths in Dwarka, worship of the serpent is the most practiced," Namath replies. "Especially now. I would refrain of speaking ill of Nyarlathotep so loudly." Enkidu notices the golden insignia of a snake affixed upon his old companion's shirt. "Have you also succumbed to the serpent?" Namath shrugs. "A man's gotta eat. But I'm no zealot, mind you. Simply a bodyguard for one of the priests." Enkidu shakes his head in disappointment. "I expected you to do great deeds as an adventurer, not become the bought man of a false god's mouthpiece." "I ran into a little debt," Namath again shrugs. "I had to pay off that debt somehow. It was a choice between using my skills for money or rotting in the city dungeons. I do not think it would be a difficult decision for anyone in the same position to make." Enkidu disagrees, but says no more on the matter. Tarvin is surprised by his restraint. It seems out of character for the man. "It was good to see you again, Namath." "If you are successful in garnering a loan, seek me out again before you leave the city, and I'll help you celebrate." Enkidu nods, holding up a hand in farewell. "Come, Tarvin. We must now head for the temple." "He was a friend of yours?" Tarvin asks as they walk. "Before I was accepted into the tutelage of the warrior priest of Kitaltakuk, Master Fausto demanded I journey the world for 2 years, before returning to explain why I still desired to join them. I met Namath aboard a Naya fishing vessel. There we spent 4 months out at sea before the two of us tried our hands as adventurers once shore. When I finally returned home, I explained that my desires to join the warrior priests was to free the people of the world from the evils of cults and false gods. Of those, I saw many across my travels. You did not see worse horrors than those brought by cultists? Did you not see slavers or pirates? I witnessed the peoples of Ur sacrifice their children to the fires of Mammon to satisfy their appetite. I saw the people of Jan-Ura toss their maidens into the sea to appease the water god, Okinios. Nothing in the world angers or sickens me more than the practices of these cultists. Someday, I will bring them all to an end. So, have you forged any useful ties in this city during your exploits? Or only enemies? Tarvin asks. His eyes are suddenly drawn to an ebony beauty from the far-off lands of Ethian. He has never seen someone so dark before, having no idea that such a variation of peoples existed before coming to the city. There are none here who, upon hearing my name, would be overjoyed. As Namath stated, we must head to the temple of Anagashap. There we will find the followers of Nyarlathotep and the city purser. Enkidu squeezes the words through his teeth with difficulty. His anger rises at the very mention of the name. Anagashap, Tarvin asks, looking away from the Ethion woman. Is that a separate being from Nyarlathotep? Enkidu shakes his head. It is one of the many names for Dwarka's patron deity, Nyarlathotep. The people of Dwarka praise that vile worm, and celebrate its violence and appetite with ritual sex and human sacrifice. Tarvin is surprised, having heard the tales of his father and the other men of a time when the priests of Nyarlathotep attempted to spread their influence and take captives of Katatakuk for sacrifice. It was largely due to the efforts of the magician Fausto and Enkidu's father Sam that the followers of the serpent were driven away. Masters, you must be starving from your long journey, a Dwarka lady says from her food stand. She extends a steaming bowl towards the men. The smell is savory, and they both begin to salivate against their will. Apologies, but we must first speak with the elders and their master of coin. We came from a city ravaged by war, and need a loan to rebuild, Enkidu says, holding up a hand. Any coin we require today must go towards the repair of Katatakuk. Enkidu, we cannot make the journey home without provisions, Tarvin whispers, his stomach still craving the broth. We will have to dip into the coin a little. The wilderness shall provide for us. Are you not confident enough of your virility to slay a wild hare? Enkidu laughs. Let us focus upon our immediate tasks first. Then we can discuss supper. The sights and smells are overwhelming. Nowhere else in the entire world do so many cultures come together to create an atmosphere that is both foreign and familiar to all people. The streets are choked with vendors from every region, seeking to make their fortune with goods common to their people, but rare and valuable everywhere else. Your future is bleak, a shriveled old woman in loose robes that are dirty and stinking shouts as Enkidu walks past. It always seems to be, the man sighs. For only a small fee, I can determine the source of your constant troubles. Enkidu holds up a hand. I thank you, but I need not your divination to solve my woes. Only prayer and a strong will lead me down the correct path. Offended, the old woman screeches a terrible threat. Your path ends only in death, and it shall be far sooner than you think. Come, Tarvin says, trying to lead his companion past the angry fortune-teller. We do not have the time to waste here. Death will surround you, the old woman screams. Bloated, stinking corpses, choking the streets, and rivers of blood, all because of you. The words sting. She does not realize that she speaks of my past, not my future, Enkidu whispers. The deaths of Katatakuk and Benares are all on my head. No one forced your kinsmen to summon those demons into our world, Tarvin argues. You cannot bear the sins of other men. Continuing through the marketplace, they encounter sellers of rare jewels and necklaces. Dark-skinned and exotic beauties with long, muscular necks and shining black hair model the jewelry and entice men to buy the decor for their female companions. Enkidu recognizes one of the rarer jewels as the same material that his sword is composed of. Diamond, the seller explains with thick accent. The man's black head is closely shaven and smooth. Jewels adorn every possible place around his nose, eyes, lip, and ears. Over a dozen gaudy necklaces hang from his neck, and 2 to 3 golden rings decorate each of his fingers. It is made from the souls of fallen giants and dragons. Enkidu is not sure how the diamond of Yazatan weaponry is created, but he finds it very unlikely that the souls of dead beasts are responsible. More vendors try to stop the men with promises of attracting beautiful women and earning riches beyond imagination. 1 dab behind each ear, and you will become irresistible to women, a perfume merchant insists. Tarvin begins to browse the man's selection and smell each of the many fragrances. Come, we do not have time for this. We need to find the city purser and gain his audience, Enkidu says, pulling his younger companion away by the arm. Still more vendors shout as they pass and shove articles of clothing and edibles in their faces. Garments, perfumes, makeup, jewelry, cuisine so exotic that neither man has ever heard of the ingredients. All can be found in the city of Dwarka. A lithe woman with skin so dark that she is difficult to see, except by the illumination of the various torches set out around the harbor, approaches the men, speaking with a purr well-practiced in enticing travelers to her city. She wraps her fingers around Tarvin's bicep and begins to nibble on his nearest earlobe. Why are you still dressed, love? Tonight begins the serpent's dance, and we must all coil together. Tarvin feels her warmth pressing against him and her panting and aroused voice breathing into his ear. He suddenly feels all of his own convictions being shaken. We are not followers of your false god. We serve one who is above all, Enkidu replies, trying to draw Tarvin out of his predicament. Yes. We're only here to meet your city's lenders. We were unaware of our arrival coinciding with such spirited festivities, Tarvin stutters. The woman grabs Tarvin's manhood and squeezes, pressing her lips against his. I am fortunate for your oversight, I believe. Tarvin's eyes look towards Enkidu, pleading for permission to postpone their business. The warrior priest shakes his head sternly. I am afraid that I have more pressing matters. Many lives depend upon our success in this venture, Tarvin explains to the woman. She kisses him again passionately. Perhaps I will encounter you again before you leave. Tarvin smiles shyly. I would very much like that. Enkidu rolls his eyes, pushing Tarvin forward. Come now, we must not tarry. On their path to the temple of Anagashap, both men are forced to decline the advances of many women, even a few men. It seems as though, with all of the celebration and hormones in effect, an air of lust has overtaken every citizen of Dwarka and worked them into a sexual frenzy. As nightfall nears, the beginning of the Diamanaga approaches. Finally reaching the temple, the men must fight through great crowds of people. The large structure is bustling with more activity than anywhere else in the city. Outside, more food vendors are set up, as well as countless prostitutes of both sexes and half a dozen different races. Enkidu ignores the propositions of the sex workers, while Tarvin more politely declines each with a mixture of regret and embarrassment. Within the serpent's home, dozens of priests conduct their business with no regard for the visitors making their pilgrimage. Some of the priests assist the faithful with their prayers and sacrifices, while others engage in sexual acts with them. Enkidu's stomach turns and the hair on his arms rise at the smell of rotting flesh, which is barely masked by fragrant oils. The floor below is dotted with holes for ventilation, and Tarvin stumbles as he walks, looking downward. I saw something move down there. The serpent is real? I thought it merely a fanciful idea like the gods of every other land. Enkidu sighs, frustrated by his companion's lack of faith. The serpent is real because it is just a very large animal. There's no divinity within this building. He looks around at the priests and worshippers with disgust and pity. This is merely a reverent zoo. He rationalizes this as to why Nyarlathotep was able to survive the battle against his father, that this isn't the same creature. When Eris first told him that Nyarlathotep still lives, he ran through many emotions, but believes this is the most reasonable explanation. Tarvin recalls the zoos of Levant, the one time his father took him to the city as a child. In massive enclosures, he was able to see up close the beasts of the wild he had never even heard of. Long-necked giraffes, black and white striped zebras and okapis, giant tapir, sloths, pangolins, kudu, terror birds, man-like apes, and even enormous behemoths with tails as thick as tree trunks. He found it enjoyable to see specimens of animals found locally that were on display for foreigners to marvel upon, such as antelopes, massive bears and aurochs, tank-like rhinoceroses, with armored hides and horns like spears, elephants, ostriches, wolves, and tigers, even crocodiles, lions, and leopards. The only serpents he can recall were no longer than a few feet, such as asps and cobras. An altar up ahead is stained with blood, and a table of skulls is on display nearby. Worshippers kneel before the skulls and kiss them, both in reverence and with passion. While in prayers, other worshippers fondle and grope them, some even forcibly penetrating to no protest. Enkidu scowls and again has to prevent himself from drawing his steel against the perverse Dwarkans. The remains of priests who gave themselves as tributes to the serpent, Enkidu says as he notices Tarvin staring at the skulls. It is a vile, horrid practice. Many cultures revere their dead, but only the worst perform human sacrifice. He neglects to mention to his companion that when the serpent leaves enough of the body as a sacrifice intact, the priest will then parade it through the streets, allowing any and all who wish to molest and copulate with it. People perform this act in the hopes that their seed will be received as a blessing, and they will then be granted with increased virility towards future generations. Welcome, a priest in an open red robe says, approaching them. Aside from their robes, the priests wear nothing. Sexuality is a key component in their worship of the serpent, and the priests regularly engage in activities with each other and the faithful who come to worship. The priest attempts to kiss Enkidu in greetings, but he is met by the tip of the warrior's blade. The priest laughs loudly. I do not mind being penetrated. I fear that it is you who is ashamed of your sexual body. I did not come here for violence, nor did I come to be molested. I am not a member of your faith, Enkidu says, sheathing Tiavan. We have come merely seeking an audience with the city's master of coin. The priest nods. Where do you travelers hail from? Kataltakuk, Tarvin responds. We were besieged by an army of demons, and our city was left in ruin. I am saddened to hear this, but we do not participate in many wars here in Dwarka. Our naval fleet is reserved for defensive actions only. We believe in the truth of love and worship. We did not ask for this war. It came to our gates and kicked them down, Enkidu explains, insulted at the suggestion that his people enjoy war. War is detestable, but to protect our lives and homes we must take up arms in times of need. The priest shrugged, seeing no point in arguing philosophy with the foreigners. Are you seeking barter or loan? Loan. Most of our homes were damaged and our granary stores and fields are depleted. We have nothing left of value to trade. We could always make use of virile young men and women. The priest smiles. We could make the trade in flesh. What say you about sending us your youths, aged 10 to 20, to live with us for 10 years in exchange for any loan you desire? Enkidu growls, tempted to draw his sword, but Tarvin puts a hand on his shoulder to calm him. We cannot force our people to do anything without their own consent. We do not partake in slavery, Tarvin explains. That is your decision to make, the priest nods. A temporary arrangement can still be made. Temporary servitude is still servitude. I insist that we must decline. I understand, though I am disappointed. I shall go fetch the Master of Coin to speak with you. Perhaps he can come to a mutual agreement where I was unable, the priest says, reaching the extent of his ability to make a deal. He was looking forward to some fresh bodies to bring into their celebrations. Calm yourself, Enkidu, Tarvin whispers as the priest exits into a back chamber. We cannot be insulted by their ways. We must remain strong for our people. They are relying on us to secure this loan. A taller man approaches them after speaking with the previous priest. Like the others, his robe is open and he wears nothing else. His manhood is large and it sways side to side as he confidently approaches them. Enkidu looks away in disgust, seeing no end to the lack of any decency found in the city of Dwarka. Muchi tells me here that you have come to request a loan, Master of Coin Vazang says. Enkidu nods. It is true. Our city was destroyed by demons, and we are left with nothing but our lives. Demons? Is this literal, or do you merely speak of very violent marauders? Actual demons. They came into our world through a special doorway, and it took everything we had to defeat their army. And now you are in ruins. You no longer possess any gold or jewels, no food or livestock. We have little food and no surplus of beast. Our valuables were all taken or destroyed. Typically, we do not deal with loans when we cannot receive anything in return for our risk. He looks back briefly at the priest Muchi. And you refuse to trade in flesh. We had to decline his gracious offer, Tarvin says, heading off Enkidu before he responds inappropriately. The priesthood of this temple rules Dwarka. You will find no offer better than through us. Tarvin nods. I understand and am grateful for your kindness, but is there any other way to gain the supplies that we need to rebuild? Any other proposals would require us to collect more in the end than the aid that we give you. Interest in this case is more than fair. I have the final say, of course, but Muchi will go over the details of your loan if you agree. I will discuss the matter with him first. In the meantime, please enjoy what our city has to offer. We shall meet again tomorrow morning. He begins to chuckle, thinking of something amusing. Not too early, though, for tonight is the Serpent's celebration. As he leaves, Tarvin turns to Enkidu, confused. There's more celebration to occur than what we have already seen? Enkidu's face is flushed and his hands are trembling. The Diamanaga is the height of Dwarka's debauchery. The streets will continue their madness until the conclusion of the celebration. Dusk arrives, and Lanlin takes a deep breath to calm her nerves before riding down to enter the city of Dwarka. She has never been to a city this large before, and never alone to one even smaller. At the gate, the guards eye her in a manner that makes her very uncomfortable. It must be uncommon for a female to come to the city alone, and she sets herself ready to defend should anyone get too aggressive. Where do you come from, girl? A a guard asks. The man's skin is dark, and she cannot easily distinguish it from the growing night.
A small fishing village north of Samsara. You would not know the name, she replies, remaining tense.
They always come from small villages, the guard laughs. Hard to make a decent living when everyone is relatives. The other guard chimes in, also laughing. They must not know how to give the girls a proper stabbing in the little villages. They all come to the city looking for real men to give it to them. It gives us a good variety, it does. Treasures from all over the world. That way all men who visit our city are satisfied no matter their tastes. The other guard looks Lianlim up and down very carefully. She's in very good shape. A girl that has high stamina and a toned body will move up very quickly in favor.
Lianlim grinds her teeth together in anger, trying to prevent herself from drawing her dagger and slitting each of the crude men's throats. They think I'm a whore coming to Dwarka to sell my body for money. For the right price, we can get you an audience with the city's premier mistress. She will take you under her wing and teach you exactly how Dwarka operates. The other guard approaches Lianlim, trying to reach up her garments. Slapping away the man's hand, she quickly withdraws a jewel from her pouch, given her to Enkidu, before the guard's anger can properly manifest. Tell me, is this the right price? She asks. Both guards smile, allowing her to begin entrance into the city. She tosses the gem on the ground and continues on her way, not looking back once. You be careful, girl. We would not want something bad to happen to you or your treasures. My treasures will be well protected, but thank you for your concern, she replies, keeping one hand close to her dagger. The guards laugh, impressed by Lianlim's tenacity. Wonder who will have the honor of breaking that one in. Whoever he is, he'll be in for one hell of a ride. Lianlim grinds her teeth as she quickens her pace into the city, still able to hear the vulgar words of the guards. Enkidu was not exaggerating about the vileness of this city. I have not yet made it fully inside, and I'm already disgusted, Lianlim thinks. Even in the dark, the city of Dwarka bustles. Late-night vendors fill the streets, pawning their foreign goods to travelers. Men and women of the night flirtatiously attempt to stir up business, vying for the attention of men with full wallets. Raucous bar fights spill out into the streets, cursing and shouting drowned out by the sheer volume of Dwarka's ambient background. Lianlim is overwhelmed, trying to take it all in at once. Raised a farm girl and archer, the sights of the major port city are all new to her. She prays that Enkidu and Tarvin will not be far behind. The longer she has to stay alone in this city, the more she knows that she is in danger.